So I'm given the background that you all have, I am not going to go into detail about what a family caregiver is. It looks like we've got here we go, the page again. But I do want to talk about the scope and size of the issue. So across the country, really kind of an unseen army of unpaid spouses, daughters, sons, grandchildren, siblings, neighbors, who are usually unpaid and taking care of those folks in their life who need care. It's last estimate was 53 million adults providing this type of care. You've probably encountered them in your nursing experience, and it's 1 in 5 people across the country. And for most of us, as we age, we're either going to need someone who's going to care for us, or we're going to be providing that care, or potentially both. And it really comes at it's something that is done. It's such a positive thing for those when we talk to family caregivers, but it does come with a cost, and those costs include the time the family caregivers take to care for the person in their life, the money, the financial aspect of it. 3/4 of family caregivers are using their own money to help pay for the care and the just even some of the household goods that their loved one or their care recipient needs. And when they are paying, it's an average of $7,000, which can be quite significant. Obviously, strained relationships, strains at work, and certainly physical and mental health of the family caregiver itself tends to decline. So if we go to the next page. Great. This is sort of what AARP has been doing about it. Now, AARP, you can argue, we have been working on family caregiving since we started. Our founder, Ethel Percy-Andrus, Dr. Ethel Percy-Andrus, left her job as a high school principal in California to be a caregiver for her parents. And since then, we have been working on the issue, and really we've made this one of our top priorities at AARP currently. And you can see our goal up here by 2030, and it really comes at it from two lenses. One, we want everyone in this country to have the options to age as they need and as they want and as appropriate. And for many, they want to be at home. And to do that, they're going to need the support of certainly, hopefully, a system that's out there, but more importantly, the family and friends who are going to help them there. And we want to make sure that the family caregivers have all that they need to equip them and support them so that they can be successful in that journey. So we're looking at, we really approach this from 3 angles that you see on the left there. The first is we want to increase the support for family caregivers. And now some of this is advocacy, where our state offices, our volunteers advocate to their federal lawmakers, their state lawmakers. And I can tell you that over the last 5 years in every single state and District of Columbia and Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, those volunteers and state offices have fought for and achieved, been able to push through and support passing multiple laws that support family caregivers. But there's support in other ways as well. We know that thanks to the work that Dr. Reinhardt was on, Susan Reinhardt earlier, she's really led a lot of work in terms of working with health systems to help them understand the role that family caregivers can play. And so that is an aspect where we work with healthcare organizations to help them understand how they can better include family caregivers in what they do. And I believe Pam is going to talk about a very important aspect of that after we go. And then there's working with employers. We have worked with I think we've 7,000 employers to date. And it's working with employers to help convince them that they need to, there's a real need to support working family caregivers. But quite often, then the next question that they give us is, how can you help us in terms of educating the family caregivers who work for us? So those activities are really central to what we do. The other really big one is working directly with family caregivers, giving them the support they need. Caregiving, family caregiving is such a personal issue that, for many, it's not something that you look to necessarily the federal government to help you with your family caregiving, but you're looking to your friends and family. You're looking for those that you trust in the community to guide you to the resources and the help that might be there. And we've made it our commitment to make sure that we have the best family caregiving content, period. We've been able to reach, each year we're reaching at least 10 million family caregivers, and helping them understand, that the information in terms of their own journey, what they might need for their loved one, what they might need for themselves, helping them understand that they're not alone, and connecting them to the resources and the programs and the services that already exist in their community. And so this is an area where, as I said, we've reached millions. But that's just scratching the surface. And I'll give you that a little bit of context in that in just a second there. And then finally, and all of this is thinking ahead to the future, and how can we fight through advocacy to ensure that we have a system that is not going to let family caregivers fall through the cracks, and that it's going to support them so that they can better ensure that anyone has the options to receive care as they want. So I'm going to turn things over to Leslie, but I first want to, number one, thank you all for being here, and just explain why we are so excited. So as we have been delivering these services and these programs, and we've been testing out specific things like, having call lines with family caregivers, providing community education, listening sessions, piloting those, and we're ready to really take off and grow. And we want to build these programs with volunteers. And there's no group of volunteers I'd rather build with than nurses. We know whenever we talk to family caregivers, we ask them, where do you get your information and who do you trust? Not always the same answer. But what we find is that, family and friends tends to be where a lot of folks get their information, but the where do we trust? It's nurses. It's healthcare professionals. And when you dig in a little bit deeper, it's the nurses. And so we know that there's no one better suited to help us build with us a program that's going to help family caregivers across the country. And with that, I want to turn things over to Leslie, who is going to walk through just some specifics and give you the contact information on where to go with any questions and interests you might have.
Thanks, Bob. Hi, everyone. My name is Leslie Cyphers. I am a proud member of the caregiving team at AARP. Thank you for joining us today. As you heard earlier from Dr. Alicia Georges, AARP really has such a strong history of working hand in hand with volunteers to ensure that the resources and supports that we have for all of our members reaches those members. And on the caregiving team, we've been doing a lot of thinking lately about how we can really work with volunteers to share our caregiving resources and our caregiving stories. And we have recently brought on a new team member named Monica Dubois to help us envision this. And so we're talking to you today to tell you a little bit more about our caregiving program and the work that we do, and where we really see volunteers working with us. We know that a lot of you have your own personal caregiving stories. And when we talk to caregivers, we know that they connect really well with people who have a story of their own. And so having volunteers who are able to, really share that experience with one another really helps deepen the engagement, between volunteer and caregiver. And so that's why you guys are such a vital source for us. We are looking to build a caregiving volunteer advisory council to help us as we imagine our work and where volunteers can really help us reach caregivers. So some of that work will involve partnering with local AARP state offices to give in-person content. As Bob said, working with employers to share workshops to their employees, and also helping us shape the programs that we are delivering as well. As Bob mentioned, we have, almost 53 million family caregivers across the nation, and just about 60% of these family caregivers work full or part-time. So on top of the work that they do, they're also caring for a loved one, perhaps juggling kids, maybe a second job. And so when we think about where we can reach caregivers, their place of employment is one of those places. And Bob said we've been working with about 7,000 different employers on this caregiving work, and we would love to have volunteers help us with that. So one of the things we do in our employer work is we give presentations to employers about what are the things that they can institute in their workplace that can help benefit their employees, perhaps flexible scheduling, hybrid work arrangements, but also giving presentations to their employees, connecting them with caregiving resources that AARP has. So that's just one of the many opportunities that we have for volunteers to help us in our caregiving work. And so if this is something that you think you might be interested in, if you have a caregiving story of your own that you might like to share with others and help them on their own caregiving journey, we would love to connect with you. I said I'm not going to just start the car to put the. And we have included our email address here on the screen. It is caregivingvolunteers@aarp.org. We would love it if you could shoot us an email, let us know if you're interested in working with us, and we would love to connect with you. So I would love to go ahead and turn it over to Pam. Pam, are you here with us? All right, Juanita, I'm not sure if Pam
we are getting ready right now. Sorry for the technical delay. Here she comes. Miranda, here you get the slides going. Okay. Hey, Leslie, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Pam.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you. And let me say I'm so glad to be here. And I am Pam Rudisell. I'm the System Chief Nursing Officer for Community Health Systems hospital system. We have 81 hospitals in 16 states. And I'm just extremely excited to be here. And I'm also board chair emeritus of the Nurses on Board Coalition, and have worked greatly with AARP through Lori Benson, Kim Thomas, and Kim Cleveland, and we just appreciate the relationship. I wanted to say today, I'm going to be presenting a little bit different aspect on caregiving, and that is from the hospital system standpoint, patient family advisory councils. And I'm just going to go ahead. I know the slide's going to get here in just a second here, but just wanted to start out with the whole concept of what is a patient family advisory council. I want to say front end that a lot of the information, and it's listed as a reference, is from the American Hospital Association. This was a collaborative group of clinical physicians, nurses, administrators, those kinds of things, and American Hospital Association representatives that met. We had some dialogue, and there's a blueprint document that came out in January of 2022 that you might find helpful. It's just a great document. But what are patient family advisory councils? Well, it's a group of either current or former patients, family members, and just getting together to get some information on what is their perception of the care and of the community. Frontline staff, very important to have on the committee. Bedside nurses, we talked about in the beginning, all the nurses and the workforce. This is a perfect example of really elevating that bedside nurse, getting them in a leadership position potentially as on a patient family advisory council. Community leaders who meet regularly, and this could be any number of designated community folks, to discuss and give insights on various initiatives within the organization that's happening, just to get different perspectives on what it is. Now, we all know patients give surveys when they leave the hospital, but this is different. This gives that chance for people to work together. The American Institute of Research further discusses how a PFAC can lead to better healthcare outcomes for not only patients, but it includes reduction in things like hospital-acquired infections, conditions, preventable readmissions, and improved, of course, patient experience. Now, I've just listed here a couple of examples. Patient feedback, whether that's you want the positive, but you also want the negative. You want the composition. You don't want all negative perceptions. Those are important, but once you have them, you also need to know what is working well. And in my many, many years of experience in healthcare and hospitals, there's always things that are going great that you want to continue and maybe tweak. And there's also things that could need improvement. Perceptions of care from the community members. This is extremely important that you want to have as well. And then feedback on workforce initiatives for success. We are all, no matter where we are in the country, workforce issues are a big, big problem that we're really, really working on. And I know there's so many initiatives from the healthcare standpoint that are out there as well. But getting impact from or feedback from your community members can be extremely important. And then the next slide, Brenda. So who is members of the Patient Family Advisory Council? Well, that can be numbers, not so much important. It can vary depending on your organization, but just depending, could be 12, could be 6, could be 20, many over 20 to 25, those probably going to be too many to get the impact that you want from the membership. Should be, as we said, frontline caregivers, 3 to 4 community members, past, present, or family members. Leadership from the facility is important, but that should not be the heavy part of it, because you really want those people at the bedside that are right there dealing day to day, 24 hours a day with the patient and family. And then the community leaders from other organizations, whether that be AARP, whether that be other community organizations as well. The how is extremely important, and there's been a lot of research and evidence on what is successful. Just like anything, you've got to have measurable goals, a charter, the bylaws, a time frame for the frequency of the meetings. And the meetings, as we know, we've come to a virtual world as we're doing today, that can be successful, or we can have on site. Again, that depends on the community and the hospital setting itself. But setting goals and reporting outcomes, developing action plans, communicating the PFAC implementation. What is it that you have discussed in the group? Who do you disseminate that information to? And most importantly, how do you educate the staff on whatever the action plan is that you develop? And then going back that circle of the quality circle of impact of how do you measure the actions that you've taken to know that you've been successful or not. Okay, so what then are elements needed for success? There's got to be commitment from the organization. If that's not there, the organization has to want this group to get together for the positive impact that it can have, and to have the individual perspective, which gets to the point of the second bullet, which is being sure that you have the right committee members and the structure for success. And then, as you can see, if you've had a chance to read any on PFACs, you've got to have the right culture. You've got to have the culture of accountability and responsibility in order for the PFAC, the information that you get, the feedback that you get, to be successful. And then, like I said before, the community input, extremely valuable, and not just to hear it, but as we've said in the measurable outcomes, what are you doing about the information that you're getting from the meeting itself? So if you look at, and these are definitely not all of the tools that are out there, they're just some of the most recent ones that have been updated, but there are so many resources out there on patient family advisory councils. And I know through AONL and AHA, I mean, we just have tons and tons of information. Some of the ones that is really have been revised through the years, the Institute for Patient and Family Centered Care, the Barrel Institute for Patient Safety and Quality is excellent. And when I was preparing for the presentation, really looked at numerous podcasts. I mean, it would have been great to have been able to show you some of those, but I would encourage you to go on the internet and retrieve some of those. They are really valuable, getting the patient and the family's perspective. And then, like I said, one of the most recent from the American Hospital Association, a START map and strategy guide for patient and family advisory councils is there and is extremely valuable as well for the process. So with that, is it Nancy, Leslie? I'll turn it back over to you.
Hi, Juanita, I'm not sure if there were any messages we need to share about joining the third session.
No, I don't believe so. It's in the chat for next steps.
Okay, great. So everyone, thanks for joining us today. The third round of breakout sessions is at 5:30. So if you guys would like to head back out to the main page and select your third session.
Thank you, everyone.